Hello, I am your host, Kathy Chester, and welcome to the Move It or Lose It podcast, a podcast about all things that move the mind, body, and soul. The Move It or Lose It podcast is for information, awareness, and inspirational purposes only. I am not a doctor, and I don't even play one on TV, so please consult your doctor before making any medical decisions. The views expressed by advertisers, guests, or contributors are their opinions and not necessarily the views of the Move It or Lose It podcast. All right, guys. So welcome again to part 2 with Summer on our Move It or Lose It podcast. So hope you enjoyed part 1. Part 2, we're going to learn how did Summer decide to become a doctor instead of being at the hospital. She decided to become a physician instead of being at the hospital. So how did this take place? And how did she become who she is today? And how did all this happen? So Summer, talk to us again. We're so happy to have you back again. And we've got a lot more questions. So your story is just so interesting and fascinating. And I'm just so curious the different spots that you took, and tell us where you were located and what happened prior to and during COVID with you before we go
Okay.
into how
Okay.
you made your next step.
Okay. So, first of all, I went to undergrad and med school later than most people. I did it after a divorce.
Right.
Went through all that as a single parent. So I did undergrad in
Which
Missouri.
kudos to you. I mean,
Oh,
I know what
thank
it's
you.
like to be a single mom, and boy, that's hard. And you did
Well,
that,
I'll tell you,
man.
in my case, it was easier than being married to my ex-husband. So, you
High
know,
five, sister.
so, so I went to undergrad in Missouri where my parents lived there. So I had a good
Uh-huh.
support system there.
Nice.
Got accepted
Very
to med school in
important.
Pennsylvania. It is very, very important. Um, Went to med school in Pennsylvania, where I have no family, so it was just me and my boys. and, and my youngest of my two boys has a primary immune deficiency and epilepsy, so he had a lot of medical stuff that I was helping him through his whole
Right.
childhood, and he's very well controlled now. He has been for several years, so
Okay,
that's good.
good. Yeah, I have
But
epilepsy as well. So
oh yeah,
that's my new one I picked up.
of course, you get another one right here. Let's hand you another one.
Yeah,
But so
but scary as a mom, when you've got a child with
yeah,
that, that's scary.
it is scary. But so then I went to Ohio for residency,
Uh-huh.
and we were talking about how I got diagnosed with what we thought was MS in 2017, right at the end of my residency. I was initially working as a hospitalist after finishing residency. So that is an internal medicine physician that only does acute medicine. So I did not have my own patients I saw routinely. Rather,
Uh-huh.
I only saw patients when they were admitted,
Mhm.
right? And so did that through COVID, at least part of way through COVID. But again, I had that last attack that they changed me from MS to NMO. That is the one that ultimately resulted in me being a wheelchair user. So I use a power wheelchair now. I cannot
Does it
it
have
the last
flames on
one.
it?
I'm sorry,
I would
what?
imagine I would imagine your chair would have flames on it.
I
Just what I
wish.
picture.
I wish I'm due for a new one this year. My old one had
You
the
need to
colors
have
that were called
flames.
chili, and they're kind of an
Okay.
orange red. So that was good. My new one's gonna have purple. So,
Oh, I
but
like it.
but anyway, I ended up being a power wheelchair user. I This may be TMI, but I self cath.
Yes.
I've lost vision.
There is no
Um,
TMI in this. You're all good.
all of this. So, well, I mean, it's just part of the reality of these diseases, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
just it exists. So,
absolutely.
partway through the pandemic, because of my last attack, well, before the pandemic, obviously, but I had
Uh-huh.
lost the ability to do things like intubations
Mm.
and do things like place central lines that I didn't feel safe doing it on patients that I didn't have fine motor skills anymore.
Right.
And I could not get my chair in an appropriate position, I felt, to be able to do it safely for patients.
Right.
So there was that. And
Which
then,
is awesome for that you did that, because there's a lot of doctors that may be a bit arrogant that feel like I got it, and don't. So
would have been
Thank
happy
God
to
for you.
relearn. I would have been happy to relearn those skills in like the simulation labs where they weren't
Sure.
real patients,
Exactly.
and learn all of it again
Yes.
under my new baseline. And that was actually the goal, to do that. But when I finally got my wheelchair and went back to work after my last attack, that was in July of 2019, I didn't go back to work until November of 2019. So the plan was to do those simulations, but
Uh,
we all know what happened.
the world came.
Right? So
How did they look at you when you came back in a chair?
um
Did they
uh
treat you different?
some people did, but most people didn't. Most
Good.
people, some people were a little weird about it, I think, but I think that's kind of more, for me, I was lucky. I think it was more of them just getting used to, oh, wait, she's in a wheelchair now.
Yeah.
You know, I've had
Yeah.
more issues with the way people treat me in a wheelchair outside of work
Oh, yeah.
than in
Yeah.
work, right? Um, when I would roll into patients' rooms, I think a lot of times they'd see me and they'd be like, oh, she's another patient. She's been here.
Right. Yeah.
She knows how this can be scary.
Yes.
And, but I was working through the pandemic, and initially, early in the pandemic, before everyone knew how bad it was going to get,
Right.
they were like, well, we're just not going to have you work with COVID positive patients because you're on Ocrevus, you're susceptible. And I was like,
Right.
okay, cool. And then quickly that wasn't possible. We
Right.
needed everybody involved.
Yeah.
And so I would go in to treat COVID-19 patients, and I'm so blessed to have worked with some really phenomenal nurses and staff that would literally pick me up out of my chair, change all of my PPE, cover
Wow.
my chair entirely between every single patient.
Wow.
It was so much work for them to do that. And then to go in and take care of their patients that they're also having to lift up and move around.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the respect I have for these people that just they took
Yeah.
care of not just our COVID-19 patients, but me as well.
Right. Right.
Right.
I think it's
Um,
so, I don't think there's enough thank yous that we can for our healthcare workers and the nurses that just were endlessly taking care of and then going
uh,
home and not seeing their families and undressing, changing in their garages or
correct.
different places, different homes that they were alone in.
Staying not at home, depending on the situation. It was brutal. It was,
Mhm.
I really, there are things that I had, like, I got married in November of 2019 as well.
Oh, nice. Me too. And I was May.
We went down, rolled down the aisle. My dad pushed me in my manual chair because I have a manual and a power chair.
Uh,
I just can't push my manual, so whatever.
okay.
And
Right.
he pushed me. We got married then. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. But um, you know, I there are things my husband doesn't even tell, and he is my best friend that knows everything about me
Yeah.
when it comes to things that we witnessed and saw and had to,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say had to do, but had to deal with through COVID, right? Um, we didn't do anything um, wrong. It wasn't like we were doing anything wrong, but it was more
Right.
just, it was
Right.
so brutal and so
Yeah.
sad and
Yeah.
so devastating.
Yeah.
But regardless, there came a point working through that I felt that it was too dangerous for me and
Yeah.
too dangerous for my coworkers and my team of nurses and my colleagues to continually be having to do this type
Yeah.
of work. It was just, it was, it was getting unbearable.
Yeah.
So I switched from being a hospitalist to primary care.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in primary care. And I have been there since. And I will tell you, I do love it. It is very
Good.
different.
And we
It
need
is
it.
very different,
I
but
mean,
I
I
love it.
can't find one here. I mean, I just
There's
today
not
I
enough of
was
us.
on the phone with the University of Michigan is where I get my care.
Yeah.
And every time they're like, have you been able to find one? No,
Yeah.
no. And the one
Yeah.
that I did have, I went to see and they didn't even have my information down. They're like, we don't see you as a patient. I'm like, I've been there like 4 times at that point.
How
So
did that
it's like,
happen?
I'm like, how do you not have me as a patient? So
That is so weird.
I know. I'm
That
like,
is so weird.
I'm like, you have my husband, but not me. You did an EKG on me. Like what? So,
How did they lose everything? That doesn't make any sense.
I know it's just it's become the whole, like we touched on, the whole healthcare system. And I'm like, I guess my my healthcare is, if I want to see a primary, it's urgent care right now. And
And
so
that's
that's,
not right. That's not the way it
no,
should
it's
be.
ridiculous. And it's
No,
like trying to
there's
find a
not enough of
primary
us.
care. No, it's so needed. I'm so glad that you did that. And I know it was something you kind of were forced into, but what a great
I love it
decision
though.
for your family. Yeah. I mean, you get to do that, a touch to people, families, kids, and so many that I think
Absolutely.
is so important. And I know that for us and for our whole family is trying to find a primary care right now. And it's like
Hard.
you don't realize until you don't have it how important it is to, like, I've got this going on. I want to just see my primary care. I don't need to go see my neurologist. I just need to see my
Right.
primary care doctor.
Because
So it
sometimes it's
is.
not an MS problem or an NMO
Right.
problem.
Right.
Sometimes it's, you know,
I have a
you want to
sinus
make sure that,
infection or
right,
something.
you want to make sure, that you're getting your mammograms on time,
Right.
that you're getting your
Exactly.
preventative care
Right.
done. What does my blood work look like? Is my cholesterol
Right.
still good? Things like that,
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's
And
so many things. And so I'm so glad that you did that. And plus, I mean, how does it make your hours and stuff like that? That's got to be less stress. Or your hours?
I'll be honest, I don't feel like it's less stress as far as hours go.
Okay.
Because when I was a hospitalist, I did work 7 on, 7 off, 12-hour days, and they were hard,
Okay.
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I had 7 days off
Mm.
that I could recover between. Now I work Monday through Thursday, 10-hour days
Okay.
in office.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I don't have time to fully complete all my charts within that time period. So
Yeah.
I also work a lot on, like, Fridays is when I do most of my appointments,
Uh-huh.
uh, things outside of work that I need to get done. And then
Uh-huh.
on Saturday and Sunday, I oftentimes go into work for probably six
Yeah.
to 8 hours each day
Yeah. That's a
and work.
lot. Yeah.
So,
So you're
you know,
working a lot. Yeah.
I think in some ways I'm working more,
Yeah.
but I will say I think the large reason why I have to work more isn't because of the patients. It isn't anything. It's part of the beast of the healthcare system.
Right.
It's all of this other stuff that's not the patient care,
Right.
right? Not the direct patient care, at least.
Right.
It's like the
Yeah.
stuff like getting insurance to pay for.
Right.
Like I said, I've had insurances deny albuterol for COPD patients,
Right.
and we have to appeal. I've had them deny insulin for diabetics.
Right.
I Right. I've had them deny follow-up imaging on suspected breast cancer or lung cancer, you know, and it's so that's why
Yeah.
that's why I have to work so much more.
Yeah.
That and that and the way that we are paid, unfortunately. No, first of all, I want to make this clear. All doctors make very good money compared
Mhm.
to the average US citizen.
Right.
I do not want anyone to feel like, oh, she thinks doctors are poorly paid. No,
Right.
we're
Right.
just paid in a really weird way
Right.
that in order to maintain a level of pay that allows us to pay our student loan debt, pay all of the
Right.
obligations, we're having to see 22, 25 patients a day, and that's not fair to patients.
No,
Or
it's not
us,
fair to you. It's not fair to patients,
right? But
and
mostly our
it's screwed
patients, I think.
up. Yeah.
It's so screwed up. But yeah, healthcare.
Yeah.
That's a topic.
Again, definitely, definitely. I want to
Yeah,
do this with
we
you
could do
when we
that in the
just talk about
future.
that. It
Yeah.
is definitely because it's a big thing that I'm asked about. It's a big thing that my clients talk to me about a lot because obviously they all either have MS, lupus, Crohn's,
Hmm.
um, all sorts of things, EDS, um,
Right. All things.
and they're just, it's the same thing. It's the
Right.
same thing. Like I can't get in. I don't have.
It's
I'm
so hard.
so
It takes
frustrated.
months to get in. I know for myself, I am booked solid through partway through February. Right now, I'm not taking new patients outside of patients that are family members of patients I already
Yeah.
see
Wow.
because I just don't have the
Right.
space to add more patients on.
Right.
We are in the process of at my practice hiring some additional providers, but they're not going to start until like November.
Wow.
So I can't do, until they get up and running and act. Yeah, they're going to start in November, but then it takes them time to
Right.
get into it. So until
Yeah.
they're into it, I can't take new patients.
Yeah.
Once they're open and going, then I'm hoping to reopen my practice,
For
you know.
sure. Yeah. No, I
So
think that that's such a big deal. It's so important, and I think that it is something that we all know it's a very stressful subject right now in everything, in all families, in your, I'm sure, with the doctors, and it's a very stressful, but I definitely want to go to that. I want you back on because I want to go into
yeah,
that more
absolutely.
so
We could
because
talk about it more in depth
yeah,
and in context of how this happened. What can
yes.
we as patients do?
Yes, would love that. Would love
Right.
that.
You know,
So let's put a pin in that.
yeah,
We're going to
put
need
a
to do that
pin
for
in that one.
sure. Definitely. So, in going into a little bit more of the stuff with you, talk to me about your views on doing like the Western medicine and some
Mhm.
other things as well. Because I
Okay.
know that sometimes, we're with a neurologist and I'll say the things that I do, which obviously I'm taking my medicine, my infusions, and things like that. I never say, I feel kind of the same way you do. I feel very, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm not going to say no to my medications, but I'm also very open to my supplements that I need that make me feel better as well. And obviously, movement and obviously eating well and those things. So, and I would want my doctor to be in agreement and have the same kind of choices and the same kind of thought process that I do. I obviously wouldn't want to have my neurologist say, I don't really think supplements are at all valuable
Right.
for you. So,
Right. So for me, I do just like you. I take my infusion. I I take Ocrevus every 20 weeks instead of the standard because I repopulate B cells too soon and
gotcha.
whatever. But so I do that. I do take other medications that help with some of the symptoms.
Uh,
I mentioned earlier I have spasticity. I get Botox.
right.
I think I said that as well.
Yeah.
Um, I do that. But then, like you, I also try and eat as well as I can. I'm clearly not in great shape. I'm kind of chubby and could lose weight, but I also am a wheelchair user, making that
Right.
moving part hard.
It's very
But I do
difficult.
what, but I do what my body allows me to
Yeah.
do. One day it may only be 5 minutes. One day it may be I did a lot just by transferring.
Yeah.
Another day it might be, hey, I can get into the gym and use the machines for a solid 30 minutes.
Right.
It's highly
Absolutely.
variable. So I
Every
do what
client
my
I have
body
is
does.
different. And it's like
Right.
just watching them, where are you today? And then we go
Yeah.
from there. And
And it's
sometimes,
different.
my chair clients, it's very different. Sometimes we can
Mhm.
do a little bit more cardio in the
Right.
chair. Sometimes we're doing some strength moves in the chair that are very different. But I think it's just, understanding that every day is different. Every session is
Right.
different. You're not going to
Correct.
feel the same way you did one session than you did the
Correct.
next one. Our bodies
Correct.
are just not that way.
Spoons, every day is
Spoons,
different.
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah,
but I am, when it comes to supplements, my general feeling is if your body needs it, take it. If it makes you feel
yeah.
better, it's okay to take it as long as it's not causing harm in other ways.
Right,
Right?
right. I
If it
never
doesn't
understood
interact with
being honest with your doctor. Like this is what I take. So they
right.
have to
Uh,
know that so it doesn't
right.
interfere with something.
Right. As a physician, I want my patients to tell me, "Hey, I'm taking a multivitamin, vitamin
Right,
D, vitamin B. I'm taking turmeric. I'm taking
right,
lion's. I'm doing these."
right.
And
Cranberry, I'm doing,
yeah,
whatever it is so
and
that
it
you
may.
know.
And guess what? There may, as long as it's not harming them.
Right,
Yeah, maybe some of them aren't providing them scientific help,
right,
but you know what
right.
it may be doing? Harnessing the placebo effect, and that's not a bad thing.
Exactly. Right. I mean, I hear things like that too, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I know that's not doing anything for them, but if it makes them feel happy,
Yeah.
go for it.
And I will say I'm really lucky where my neuro's at is in Columbus.
Uh-huh.
And they have a really big, great neuro center. They have a really good MS clinic. my neuroimmunologist specifically has done a lot of research in NMO. I've been involved as a patient in some trials there. Um,
Good.
but one of the things they have done, because obviously I do physical therapy and occupational therapy and
Right.
speech therapy when
Right.
necessary. But one of the things they have done there, and I have not done it yet, I'm just going through the sign up process of it, but for their patients in their neuro clinic. And so it's not
Uh,
just MS or NMO, it's Parkinson's, all of their anybody, right? Stroke
uh,
patients, um, epilepsy patients. They
right.
have a program that is free to sign up, and it can either be
Uh,
in person or virtual. For me, it's virtual because I live an hour away,
okay.
but where they provide, trainers to help
Uh,
adapt exercise. Because doing adaptive exercises is so hard.
yeah.
I have had the hardest time finding someone that can help me adapt something to my body, right?
Right.
So and they do that, but then they also have wellness programs in this
Yeah.
and nutrition, and they have mental health
Right.
psychologists that can step in and help. So it's this kind of a wellness thing,
Yeah.
and it's free.
Yeah. Which is so
Anybody,
important.
right? Right. It's free. They send you this package of like
Yeah.
equipment you can use for exercising at home, like
Right.
the resistant bands and stuff,
Right.
all for free.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and when it's in person for the people that are able to
Yeah.
go in person, they have the most beautiful wellness center with the
Yeah.
beautiful gym that's all adaptive.
Right. 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 Yeah. But I have found that
So,
honestly, I mean, I love when they can come in studio, but doing
yeah,
it on Zoom, I love doing that too. And now getting into, the wellness programs with hospitals and,
right,
different different MS, associations and doing that with
right,
them. It's nice because you can see there's a nice community that goes on. And
right,
to be able to have that, like I'm gonna show up because I don't want to. I want to see these people, and I want to make sure. And there's just that accountability and stuff. So I think
right.
that's great.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to get involved in it, outside of the fact that they've got people that can help me with the adaptive side of the things that I don't know.
Sure.
Um, but outside of that, it's also the accountability, because you sign up and it's like, okay. And in order for the program to be free long term, you have to do the first 12 weeks. And that first 12 weeks has a lot of accountability built
Yeah.
into it.
Very
Right.
smart.
Right. So it's kind of a way of, it's free, but after 12 weeks, if you didn't do all of these
Right.
steps, then you have to pay for it. It's still
Yeah.
cheap, but
Right. Right.
you know, I shouldn't say cheap. It's still more affordable than
Yeah.
a gym memberships
Oh,
in at
sure.
most places, right?
Yeah.
And it still
Very.
provides all those same benefits. But my point
Yeah.
is I was so happy that I was like, oh wait, they actually have access to this. They got some grants together in order to pay for it. But
Very
if
cool.
if they can do that for people, hey, I'm up for it.
Yeah.
Help me move as much as I can.
Definitely.
I take my vitamin D. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I don't take a lot of supplements.
Yeah.
Um, but I take vitamin D, I take the multivitamin. My husband does all of our cooking because I don't like to, and it's hard for me to do it, right?
Yeah.
So, and
I
he
mean, my
loves doing
husband does a lot of our cooking. I do love cooking, but he's a really good cook too. So I'm
he
like,
he loves doing it. He's a good
yeah.
cook, and he's been trying to more and more incorporate a healthier diet,
Yeah.
things that are, you know, beneficial for me.
Right.
Um, so he's learned a lot, and
Yeah.
he's the biggest supporter. He picks me up and carries me when he needs to.
That's
You know,
awesome. Yeah.
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 So,
That's
yeah,
really,
Western, yeah, Western, but at the same time, is it
yeah.
really that? And it's not all about just the medications you take, like you
Right.
said, the moving.
Right.
The I think mental health is a huge
For
proponent of
sure.
all health. You know,
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
it's got to be. I guess what I would say is I view it as kind of a holistic approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got to touch it for people who are very spiritual and very religious. We have to incorporate that into their
Right.
care as well.
Right.
You know, um,
Yeah.
and I'm not opposed to doing that.
Right. Right.
Most
Agree.
as a,
No,
you know,
agree.
as a physician, I
Yeah.
find out what works good and bring it in for them. For
Right.
myself, I do the same.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. I love that. I love
And
that. Well, let me see where we've
we're
not
not
covered.
just our we're not just our meat sack
Right.
bodies. We're also our brain. We're also our soul. We're
Exactly.
our
Yeah.
emotions. We're everything else. And
I
if we
always
don't
feel
take
that,
care of
like
all of
mind,
it,
spirit, soul. And it's
yeah,
like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like where are we? And where to then meeting our people that we are coming in contact with where they are and learning about
correct.
that. And I love that. So
Well, and
gosh,
that's
I
part of
wish
the reason why I
you
went
could
to
be my
DO school.
physician.
I'm sorry. And that's
I
part of
want
the
you to
reason I
be
went to
mine.
DO school. Part of the reason I went to
Yeah.
DO school instead of MD, because there's a different philosophy on the approach to medicine. So,
Okay. Very
by the way, in
interesting.
Michigan, you go to University of Michigan, where you get your health care. My
Yeah.
son lives in Canton. He's a student there.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I
He
like
actually
that.
goes
Well,
to
go
Eastern
blue.
Michigan. He goes to Eastern
Oh,
Michigan instead. But
okay.
he is
Okay.
he's doing religious studies. So,
Okay. Well, my husband and I are house divided. He's Michigan State and I'm Michigan. So I'm like, well, makes for
well,
some fun competition. So it is fun. So one of the things I want to ask you is a
yeah,
lot of times I ask my clients when they feel defeated or just anxious, overwhelmed, with all the fun that we experience in our bodies. What's your why? When they get defeated, what's your why? What keeps you going? What keeps you fighting through this?
yeah.
So tell me, what is that for you? And what
Well,
would you go ahead?
I will say it's variable. Like it is variable. Like some days it's this, some days it's something else. But one of the things that I always try and remember is where I'm at today, and the things I can do today are the same things I used to be able to do prior to this, just differently.
Yeah.
And I am still me. I am still who I've always been. And I'm going to continue to be that person. And who I've always been, one, I've always been a fighter, something I've always had to be. But also, I want to make sure other people smile, not
Yeah.
just myself. It makes me smile to see other people smile.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure people are okay.
Yeah.
You know, I've lived a lot of life being not okay at
Yeah.
various points of my life, and a lot of my life being very okay.
Yeah.
And everyone deserves to be okay. And I will tell you, I feel like I have something I can contribute, not just to myself, not just to my husband and my children, but the world at large.
Yeah.
And I keep pushing forward to continue doing the things that I love doing, that I feel like are so very important for
Yeah.
not just me, but the world and
Right.
as a whole.
And
And
you
not that
do.
not to say that I'm the only person who could do those things, 'cause I'm not, but I'm the only one that's me that can do
And
those
you do
things.
your part.
Right.
We can only do our part, and you're doing
Correct.
your part. And it's a
Correct.
beautiful part that's so needed. And
And
your
they and
honesty shines through.
and I look at our society, our world, whether it's little communities, whether it's families, little communities,
Mhm.
states, the country, the world as a whole, as kind of a puzzle. And
Mhm.
every single piece, every single person is one of those pieces. And the whole thing doesn't work if we're missing the piece from, you know, Butte, Nebraska, or,
Exactly.
whatever it may be.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
it's for
100%.
anywhere. We need us all because we're all part of this
I
world.
love that. Yeah.
And that's why we
Yeah.
each make this world better,
Absolutely.
even when we're having a rough time, because when we're having a rough time, hopefully someone else is, one, there helping us, and two, learning how to be a better person by helping those around them. So even
Yeah.
when we're in a bad place, we're doing something better for the whole world and the whole community because someone else is having to exercise their empathy.
Yeah. Exactly. I love
Yeah.
that. Yes.
So that's why.
Beautifully said. All right. Last question for you.
Yes.
Promise. So if you're with a newly diagnosed MS or you finally found someone that has NMO, so what would you say to that newly diagnosed? What advice would you give? If you could just say one line, one thing to them, what would it be?
Um, breathe. It's going to be scary. Every single emotion you have is valid. It is okay to grieve, but it's going to be okay. You will get to the, not really the other side, but you will get to the point that this just becomes part of your life.
Yeah,
This is just here.
yeah,
Some days are going to be good, some days are going to be bad, but pretty soon as you work through it, you're going to see more good days than bad days.
yeah. Love that.
You know,
Beautiful. Yeah,
and it's okay. It's okay to
yeah,
sit there and cry because it's a lot.
yes,
It's a
yeah. It
lot,
is. It's a
and it's
lot to take
okay.
in.
And I know this is more than just one thing, but and it's okay to be at some point in your journey where you thought that you were doing really well, and then have grieve again,
Yeah,
cry again.
yes, yeah. I always say I feel like, and tell me your thoughts on this. Like we grieve several times throughout our life with our diseases because it's like
Oh yeah.
we lose something and then it's like you grieve a little bit about that. It's like, okay, I lost something else in this disease. And
Mhm.
it's okay to take that time and grieve that and then
Yeah.
move forward. But
Right.
it would be ridiculous to say, okay, I'm not going to grieve that I just lost my ability to use that part of my leg. Of
Right.
course, we're going to grieve that things are worsening as we grow older. So
Right. You're going to grieve who you thought you were going to be had you never had this disease.
for
You are.
sure,
Um, but here's the thing, you are still you. Our physical abilities are only one little tiny part of us. One of the things that my husband did really phenomenally to help me see that when I was newly in a wheelchair.
mm,
So in 2019, I had, so I'm a big, huge metalhead and rock music. We
I
go to
saw that
concerts
from your
and
TikTok.
festivals. we go to we go to concerts, we go to festivals. Um, we go in my manual chair. I crowd surf in my manual chair, right? Um, but when I was first newly in a wheelchair, I really thought I would never be able to crowd surf again. I'd never be able to be in a mosh pit again. So before our wedding, he took me to a concert, and some random guys in the crowd came up to me and goes, "Hey, you want to go up?" I was like, "Yeah." My husband was like freaked
Oh
out
my
because he didn't
gosh,
know
I
where I
love
went.
that.
He got a little scared because he didn't know where I went.
Well, yeah, I'm sure he did.
but but then at our wedding itself, I had told one of our friends, I'm never going to be in a mosh pit again, and because I'm not going to be able to, I'm a wheelchair
Oh
user.
my gosh, you're
And
making me cry.
my friend and husband were talking about it, and they talked to the DJ who also was the guy that married us because he's
Uh,
friends with my husband.
okay.
We had, right, he's a professional DJ, like he's playing
Okay.
bands and now, yeah. But
That's
anyway,
awesome.
and then they got a hold of, so at our wedding, we have almost 200 people there, and over half of them were friends from concerts, right? So
That's hilarious.
they told some of them, not all of them. They said, okay, so my husband comes up, gets on the micro, goes, "Hey, I need all of my metalhead friends up here now, and everybody else get off the dance floor." And they played
Oh,
a Parkway Drive song and had a mosh pit and put me in the center of it.
I love
And
that.
and so that was like, oh wait, I can still do these things.
Right.
I just do them differently. And now
Absolutely.
for the festivals, I'll make it quick, but for the festivals that we go to all the time, um, I now volunteer with them to improve ADA
I saw that.
accessibility.
I
Yeah.
love that.
And they
That's
are the
awesome.
largest festival promoter in the country. They do some of the largest rock. They have some country ones as well. But right now. I think it's 7 or 8 festivals. I have to think off of the top. I'd have to think
Yeah.
about it. It's like Florida, the Midwest, California,
Okay.
a whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
So
I would
that's
love
part
to.
of
That's
something
awesome.
I do.
That's
So
so cool.
I gained
Really
that
cool.
though because of this
Yeah.
disease. That's not
Yeah.
something I did before,
Right. And that's
you
so
know?
important to know is that I want to highlight that is the things that we gain. And we don't always see that.
Right.
And I always try to journal that the stuff that I've gained through this disease, not always the things I've lost, but the things that
Right.
I've gained. So I'm grateful that you mentioned that.
Right. It's important to grieve, but it's important to look at the things you've gained.
Absolutely. Celebrate
Both.
those.
Yes.
Well, I have to
Uh,
tell you, I'm looking forward already to the next time we meet. You are a gem. I'm so happy that I connected with you and that we got to do this. I cannot wait to go over healthcare stuff with you. I'm going to already be messaging you and we're going to
yeah.
do this. It's a big
Message
thing.
me.
I'm excited to do that.
It's one we'll probably have to talk a little bit a few times
Yes. Yes,
beforehand
for
because
sure.
it is so detailed
Yeah.
and but yeah,
We'll
message me.
do
We'll
it.
figure it out.
All
All
right.
right.
So people want to get a hold of you. I'll put it at the bottom of the show notes.
Yes.
Again, she cannot give advice. She's not your doctor. So just understand that. Again, thank you, Summer, so much for being on. Don't forget, rate us. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love you to subscribe. I know I hear how much you guys love the podcast, but subscribe so I can make sure that I know how many listeners that we have. So thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Love you guys.
Thank you for having me on.
You
Bye.
bet. Bye, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Move It or Lose It podcast, where you can again find us every Tuesday and also wherever you like your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Join us on that. And we can't wait to see you again. We're going to have a lot of exciting guests and working together. And as always, you'll hear us say at the end of every podcast, we are stronger together. So let's do it. Let's become stronger together. Have a great day.